ends the Cypher. Prepare for another all-nighter.
On the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Anyways, my point about the NCAA is this. I think the article is good. I think it's high time that the NCAA is held accountable for a lot of things that they do in regards to student athletes. Now, on the flip side, which you also don't get to see, anybody who's gone to a school that has a decent athletic program, is to know that student athletes also do get a lot of preferential treatment on a lot of stuff. A lot more than even a student on a regular academic scholarship.
Have you seen Alabama's football facility?
Let me just say, they get perks. Wow. Not just that. Like, if they want to have a summertime job, they can get set up in a nice, quiet position where they can make money. Let's say they don't go pro when they graduate. I know a lot of people who got placed into jobs, even coaching jobs at other schools. So let's not just make it seem like universities just kind of stop at the buck when the student leaves and no longer an athlete. But here's my thing. Yes, they need to be called to the carpet. That I feel if you go 4 years and don't finish your degree, that should be part of the agreement. You should get a college degree because technically that is a value. The average college education costs anywhere from $24,000 to $30,000 a year.
Yes.
So let's just say you go for 4 years, you're talking about $120,000. And most people, that's student loans they have to acquire to pay for this. So if you're a student athlete and you do what you're supposed to do, you acquire no debt to at least get a bachelor's degree. And I think the NCAA owes it to them, I will agree, to make sure they get a bachelor's. They can even go a step farther and do a lot more training in regards to PR, money management, especially for players that they know particularly can go pro, giving them some extra tool sets to be successful. So I also think it wouldn't be a bad idea to provide some type of services maybe to players' parents who can't afford to come see them play because they moved across the country to play, football. Those are the kind of things I want to see the NCAA doing. I also believe they don't have a right to use their likeliness. That is exploitive. I believe that needs to stop. But just like the NFL and the NBA, the NCAA has grown exponentially, probably without realizing where they would be. If you look back 50 years, they probably didn't realize they'd be where they are, and that's why it's time.
$1 billion industry.
Right, they didn't think that. But here's my thing. At the same time, you need to flip this coin and look at the other side. Yes, they might make $6 billion a year, but understand this. For that athlete who is an exceptional talent, they scouted them, they brought them to college, made them bigger, faster, stronger, and put them on a national stage to be recruited, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, to then go and make millions of dollars, in which they never recoup a cent of that. So the upside for the athlete that has talent is, granted, you may feel like you're losing certain things as a student athlete, but when you go pro, the money that you make pro is a lot of money. Now, when you talk about wanting to pay athletes, that becomes difficult because even on one football team, the caliber of talent isn't equal. It's not. So that's a dangerous conversation to say because it's just like if you work for a company, if you work for Apple or Microsoft, it's called intellectual property. To agree, they own you. If you create something while you're at that company and you leave, guess what? You're SOL. It's honestly the same thing at college football. The price you pay is that you're going to be marketed to a higher level to make a lot of money. It's almost like the NCAA is unofficially their agents.
Yeah, but they're marketing them to that level, but they're getting that money tenfold back.
But here's the flip side to this. The average college football fan is not necessarily a fan of the player.
They're school.
They're a fan of the school.
Logo.
Yeah,
that's a sports fan in general.
But I'm just but
that's football.
You have more people, especially pro, that sometimes have a love affair with players more so like LeBron James people. They love LeBron James no matter where he goes.
See them.
So I'm just
Football
saying,
isn't
but in
like that.
college, where the notoriety isn't the same, people love the university.
Yeah,
and that's what they go to watch, and that's what they support.
It's like people love the Chicago Bears.
Right, and understand that the money that the NCAA does make does flow back into the university to fund scholarships as well as programs that don't make money, like lacrosse or steeplechase or tennis or baseball. So this money is spread out different ways. Yes, the NCAA makes a whole lot of money. I agree. And they do need to revise some of the things they're doing with players. But people are making them into being like the worst case scenario. At the same time, for everything they've done that's wrong, they've also done some good things for a lot of people.
Yeah, no doubt. Go ahead, Faruq.
I got to say, this is some of the first pro NCAA talk I've heard in a long time from anybody.
I'm just being honest about it. It's here's the thing. It's become a business just like everything else, and that's what makes this hard because it is now a business, whereas, let's say, 50, 60 years ago, it wasn't the same type of juggernaut. Right. You see this with the NBA. Look, if you talk to a football player like Joe Theismann or Terry Bradshaw, they didn't make a fraction of the money. They made, I think Joe Theismann said in the final year he played football, he made $450,000. The average bench salary for an NFL player is $500,000.
Right.
Okay, but that's part of times
But
changing.
but that's my point.
But
Times have changed, so hence the NCAA does need to make some modifications to what they do. I agree with that. But people are making them out to be as if they are like an absolute monster, and
because
they've done.
they haven't adapted to the times.
Okay,
that's
but-
really what people have a problem with. I mean, it's
Look at
like
this
what
country.
you're saying.
Look at this country. His whole conversation is people in general have not adapted to times.
But he also said too that the NCAA is going to be gone, and it is. It's on so many levels, from the crazy suspension of only 30 minutes for Johnny Manziel to
Ridiculous.
now it's going to be almost irrelevant. As Faruq brought up, the whole BCS playoff thing.
Well, they always knew that was
That's
wrong.
going to be gone.
They knew
but
that
for
was
a
wrong in
long
the first
time, Maya,
place.
but for a long time they fought against that. Times is changing, and they're going to be gone.
But it makes sense because look at it this way. If you're the NCAA and you were doing football one way and it seemed like it was right, but then you finally looked over and said, well, wait a minute. How we do the playoff system for basketball makes a whole lot of sense.
Maya, they were kicking and screaming. They did not want to go to a playoff for football.
Because change never happens easily. But my point is, at least you see how viable March Madness is and how
It's going to be bigger than that.
Of course it is. And that eventually, understand this, the NCAA is just like any other entity. You have some people who are open to change and other people who are not. You know what I mean? And that's what they have to fight to make change. And I think people should never lose sight of it's an institution that's run by people. So thus means it's going to be flawed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I think
no doubt.
I'm not so bent out of shape about it, because we're dealing with human beings, and that's the first thing you got to take into account, that some people don't like change. But they haven't done everything. Obviously, they've done something right because they're making a whole lot of money. Now, the question is, how can this be cleaned up and it benefits everybody?
And that's the thing. And then forever, people have been seeing that this really hasn't benefited like the athlete. And I think that's what the problem has been with this. And there's been so many businesses. With this being a big business, all these other businesses have found ways to kind of keep up with the times to a certain extent. What's been the problem with the
Think about
NCAA?
it. The NCAA is probably one of the biggest corporations in this country.
No doubt. No doubt.
Just think about divisions, how many schools there are. There are so many. When you talk about rule changes, I mean, the tiers that it has to go through. So I mean, it's huge, which means there's going to be a lot that they're going to have to process and figure out, because it isn't like making one small change and it just affects everybody. It's a ripple effect between divisions. You know, the conversation comes into, well, you're a smaller school that didn't generate this much money, but you're a mega school and you did, figuring out how to divide. I mean, there's a lot of
It's
things.
going to be a percentage type of thing.
But not even not even a percentage. Now you see, like down in Texas, they have their own network. I think eventually these schools are going to step out. Like, you know what? Why do we need you? We can do this on our own. Capitalism at its best. I can do this by myself. I don't need you.
Well,
and that's why they can get together and have like a BCS playoff, a college football playoff, whatever the case may be. I think the NCAA is here. In I understand everything you're saying, but I think eventually, as you're seeing, people are going to start to peel off. Like, I don't need you. I really don't.
I'm not going to buy that. I'm going to tell you why. It was the same conversation when the NBA had the lockout, and they were like, well, players, won't you form your own league? Because people don't realize all of the infrastructure that's there. It didn't happen overnight.
No, it did not happen overnight.
So
but you're talking about billion-dollar institutions like the University of Texas, University of Ohio State.
Notre Dame's been doing it forever.
Been doing it forever.
Yeah.
Well, Notre Dame is kind of like that freak of nature entity, which, by the way, is still operating within the confines of the NCAA.
Yeah.
They're not operating outside of it. They are inside of it. So once again, different situation, but they're still within the framework.